Mhm. Oh, that is too long. Man, I don't know what I'm doing. Let's see if that's short enough. Oh, still not short enough. There. 10 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock. Okay, this is my first live. I'm just gonna read it. Might not sound great, but uh, so yeah, I scheduled this live because I struggle with making YouTube videos. Um, so this is my experience to see if this, going live, if it works, then I'll be able to come back and try it again. All right, so I'm neurodivergent. I'm diagnosed with ADHD, bipolar, and anxiety. But I'm pretty sure that I've been misdiagnosed, um, and that I possibly have ADHD. But that's just my theory for right now. Anyway, when it comes to getting things done, I think the threat of someone watching me might be enough to trick my brain into actually doing the thing that I struggle to do. So I scheduled this live to test it. And so the problem with YouTube, I can plan content all day, and I love to plan. But going from that idea to the published video, oh my God, I struggle in so many different places to where I can't always get it done. Most times I can't get it done. Now, I've tried scheduling, I've tried accountability apps and people, I've tried content calendars, just different things, and none of it works. But I did notice something um, when I scheduled an on camera workout body double session with a person that possibly would be on with me. I showed up like every time, and I did that for several months. So I was thinking, what if going live does the same thing for me with YouTube? So that's why I'm here. And obviously, this isn't polished. I'm not very polished. I'm not very good at this yet. Um, but um, just gonna try and figure it out live and document whether it works or whatever. Um, Let me see. So I want to answer the question, what is actually happening in the space between planning and execution, and like where is the breakdown? So the first part of that question, what does it actually feel like in my body or my head in that moment when I have to plan, what to do, and then I still can't start, and then what's actually happening there. So I see doing YouTube as like this macro task. And I thought, hey, breaking it down into smaller tasks and then putting those tasks, you know, on each day would make it easier for me to do. So ideation, research slash outline, script, record, edit, and post. So each one of those are on a separate day. And then I break that down into micro tasks because abstract I cannot do anything that sounds too abstract. I have to know like the mechanical steps in order to get stuff done. So we'll go through each of those tasks, and I'll explain like where I kind of get tripped up at. So with ideation, um, I find that this is like the easiest thing for me out of all of these steps, because my brain is very good at coming up with ideas. Um, and I do it every day throughout the day. And it's not something that I can turn off very well. And therein lies the problem, because those new ideas have more dopamine and novelty associated with them. So if I've started a video and now I have this new idea, I chase that new idea and now I don't even want to do this video anymore. Um, so that can be the struggle right there. And my YouTube calendar is filled with many ideas. Um, and that's not even all the ideas that I would have either. And let me see if I can pull up my calendar. So yeah, these are all the different ideas that I've had. And I've only posted, well, this will I think will be my sixth video that I'm posting. And it's the live, it's the experiment. So I only was able to do 5 videos since I restarted my YouTube channel. Uh, so going on to the second task, research slash outline. And I do this pretty well as well. Um, just the fact that I love like research. I love to look stuff up. I love, asking the questions and just digging deeper and finding connections and all of that. But I do struggle with this because I have an issue with both breadth and depth. So when it comes to breadth, I'll start with one topic, right? And then while I'm trying to research that topic, I get other ideas, and then those ideas turn into questions, some adjacent and some not. And each question feels relevant, but it pulls me away from that original task. Um, and then when it comes to depth, I call it like vertical drilling. So with each idea or topic or whatever, I need to understand like everything about it before I can even move on. So the topic comes with like, okay, I need to define it. I need to identify the assumptions that people tend to have with it or that I'm having with it. I got to trace like the root causes, check the edge cases, decide who it's for and who it's not for, understand like the rationales behind it and connect all the dots. Like literally, whenever I do a chat with AI, I always say, give me the rationales and connect all the dots. And then I also need to understand it in layman's terms. So, and that's just like for every like question, every idea that I have. So if I'm having like 5 or 6 ideas at one time, like you can see how like my brain just gets so filled up and I'm not able to move forward with the one thing that I was trying to do. However, I did create a GPT that I call loop governance. And if I use it, it protects my main task whenever I ask questions that don't relate to what that singular task is. The GPT will park that distraction. It'll tell me, hey, that's got nothing to do with this. I'll save this for you and we'll go over it later. And then at the end, when I finish the task, it gives me all the insights from the distractions, from the ideas or questions or whatever that came up that didn't um, help move forward that main task. Um, and so that's super helpful, but only if I'm in it. So if I go to another app or another tab, I'm no longer in that governance GPT. And so I will, have that same breadth and depth issue. Or if I go off the computer, go to the bathroom, go eat something, well, anything can, steal my attention and, I'll forget all about this. So that is the issue when it comes to research and outline. spiraling. Okay. And then the next task is scripting. So if I've gotten this far, um, I'll have, the outline, and now I got to turn that into a script. Now, um, literally at any moment, I can have a new idea, or, since it's the next day that I'm doing the script, I might have changed how I felt or how I think about something, like if I've gotten new information. And so what I've written is now outdated, and it's like, I don't want to put that out. And so now I'm changing the outline, or I'm changing the idea, or I'm doing more research, but I'm not actually doing the step that I need to do, which is the scripting. Um, and let's see, 'cause I just need to be correct, and I don't want to steer anybody wrong, with what I say, because I feel like it's, you really got to be responsible when you're putting out content. Even if nobody's looking at you right now, eventually somebody might look. Um, and I use AI to help me, with the scripting process as well. I use, different frameworks or whatnot, and then I kind of have the AI analyze, like, either my outline or the script that I write, and so that it'll help me, like, with the different things that you're supposed to have. So, you know, you want to hook the person in the first however many seconds, hook them often, you got to retain them, got to add value every now and then, do some storytelling. So, like, I use frameworks that have all of that in there, and to make sure that that script is as good as I can give it, being a beginner. Now, I didn't use it for this, because I was trying to be make the process as simple as possible, really. Um, but and it's something that I've noticed is that, because usually I will write the full script and I'll have it on a teleprompter, but that was, when I'm recording. But this, I'm not. I'm live, so I'm told, hey, you need to use bullet points, and so yeah, I'm trying to use bullet points, but it takes me a minute to process the bullet. So, like, not only do I have to figure out what that bullet says, but now I have to figure out how to say it. And it's like, it takes me a minute. And so, like, I have all these white spaces. And this is a live, it's recorded. And once it's recorded, it just goes on my under my lives. And now, there's no editing it, I don't think. I mean, I haven't attempted to edit it yet, so I don't know. But yeah. Okay, so going on to recording. Um, I hardly ever get this far. I've gotten this far 5 times within the last, let's say, 4 months, 5 to 6 times during well, if we're not including today, then the last 3 months. So I restarted YouTube towards the end of December, and I did that last week of December and 4 weeks worth of weekly videos in January, and then I fell off. So that's 5 videos that I was able to get done through all of this. But then I fell off for a couple months now. And so I haven't been able to get to this recording stage since January. Now, I have so many fears: so fear of exposure, fear of judgment, fear of looking stupid or sounding stupid, fear of being seen, fear of being misunderstood, fear of seeming like I'm boring or just not enough, or just fear of saying the wrong thing or being wrong. And I could go on with that list because I just have so many fears. But the point of it is just I have a lot of fears that get in the way of me recording. Or even if I do record, then I'm just going to re record. And that's just the fears part. So also got to worry about how messy my place is because, I struggle to clean my room and whatnot. So gotta find the right place to record. Gotta worry about the lighting, the sound, how I'm dressed, how my hair is. Is my face too shiny? Do I have pimples? And, like, all of that. Like, it's a lot to wade through in order to just record. And so yeah, I hardly ever finish this step. But if I do and I move on to the editing part, now I have to actually watch myself making my, these faces because, my face is very expressive. I hate the way I sound. Um, and so it's a whole lot of cringe to have to listen to myself talk, to have to watch myself squirm around, feeling like, oh, I sound silly. Oh, I could have did that better. And now I want to re-record. And then you got to add in all the editing parts. So like you got to do the transitions, the visuals, the captions. Do I add music or sound? Who knows? Whatever. But all of that makes the editing process hard. And each of those points is a chance for me to get, get caught up, to stop, like to get distracted or whatever the issue is. Like it'll stop me. Any of those points could be stopping points for me to where I don't finish the editing. But if I do finish the editing, the posting is really not that hard. Um, Now it does have some stuff, to go along with tests to go along with it, but usually by at this point I've already done the things like, creating a thumbnail, a title, the descriptions, the tags. Um, I've usually already done all of that. So, posting the video is pretty easy. Although, I mean, there's still some like, oh, what if going on that, I have that will I or won't I energy over the what ifs. But like usually I have, like as you can see, I usually have all of that ready, ready to go. So posting is not always my issue. Post posting, now that can be a problem for me, um, because it's hard to sit in that space of time where you don't get any feedback. And, I'm new at this, I'm not consistent enough. So I don't really have any viewers. So, like, after I've posted a video, I'm checking back every 2 to 3 minutes for like that first 24 to 48 hours. Just constantly checking, refreshing to see if anybody's watched it yet, refresh to see if anybody's commented or whatever. And that feedback delay is really hard to sit through. And it, like I know, logically, I know that it's expected, but on the emotional side, like it's super hard. And it's like, I don't want to go through that again, kind of a thing. So that kind of makes it harder to repeat the whole process all over again. And it also makes me want to change up. So I'll have a whole new YouTube channel idea, and then I'll follow that. So those are like all my issues. So I created this action pipeline um, to kind of uh, show how I think the whole action loop is. So a lot of people talk about, you're not doing it because you don't have motivation or you don't have discipline, or they give you advice like just do it. And it's so much harder than we think, because it's like I feel like most things in mainstream in society or whatever is compressed. And so, you know, just do it or whatever. This whole action loop is just do it. Like there's so much that goes in, from you going from intention to a completed action. And so that's what uh, this is all about. And the action pipeline is what I want to discuss in particular. And that's that, just that one small circle. But it involves intention, the task representation, start condition, ignition, then the handoff to initiation, sequencing, persistence, task switching, and completion. Actually, the start condition is up there, but it's like I'm trying to do a 2D version of a 3D process. So it's not a linear process, but I'm trying to make it linear in order to help you understand it better. But anyway, I'm going to go through this to kind of explain where I think I'm going wrong. um, or where I'm getting stuck. Because basically, at any of these points, um, my action pipeline, intention to completion, can break. Um, and it's at any time of the day, at any with any type of action, which is why I struggle so hard, so badly. Um, and every day is not the same, and so I might struggle with the initiation at one time, and maybe I'll struggle with persisting the next time. So it changes. It's not always the same. And the reason I think that is because, like, we're not doing any of these actions. I'm not doing YouTube within a vacuum, but I'm doing it within the context of my real life. And another, like, I created this equation. I call it the personal greatness equation, and basically says outcomes equal you times X times action times environment times circumstances. And those are all like four major um, variables that interact with each other. And if any of those variables are like low, um, in the negative or whatever, then it's going to affect your outcome. So, how people talk about you need a better mindset, or you need to have discipline, or you need to have habits or consistency, or don't have the wrong people around you. Um, yeah, that's all part of it, but it's so much more to that causes your outcome. So you can never say, whenever somebody says, you didn't have the right mindset, or you weren't disciplined enough, or you weren't consistent enough, that is oversimplifying it. And we are complex beings within complex situations. And so it's never that simple. And so, because any of those things, you see the sub variables that I have listed under each of the major variables, if any of those things is going wrong for me, then it's going to affect my ability to have the outcome that I want, which is to have that completed YouTube video. So again, I can get stopped at any point in that action pipeline because of what's going on here. And it's not all about me. Sometimes it's my environment. Sometimes it's my circumstances. Yeah. Now, originally, I thought that I struggled with ADHD, and my symptoms, the traits or whatever that I was uh, expressing, was completely ADHD, and I had to navigate that. So, like, the different symptoms, like lower baseline dopamine, dopamine deficit, executive dysfunction, decision paralysis, rejection sensitive dysphoria, internalized incompetence, or imposter syndrome. Like, those are all things that I struggle with. But I also recently, not, like, maybe within the last few weeks, I heard that ADHD can sometimes mask autism. And yeah, so, like, I think a lot of the things that I described when I went through each of the tasks of the whole macro task of doing a YouTube video. Yeah, a lot of that sounds like dopamine driven avoidance and attention patterns. But there's also some sensory and perceptual processing things going on, that is very much autistic nervous system processing. Um, and maybe autism might explain why, the exposure feels so intolerable rather than just uncomfortable. Um, and why doing something enough times doesn't make it any easier for me. I'll still be afraid of it. So if I treat it, and since I have been treating it as purely an ADHD, initiation slash maintenance slash completion problem, then I'm only solving part of the problem. The solutions are only going to half work. Um, yeah. So then that leads us to the next question. What is the thing that mainstream advice always says to do in that moment? The tip or the fix that everyone recommends, and why does it not work for someone whose system actually works the way mine does? So, this is just a list of the different like advices you might get for YouTube. Post consistently, show up every day, build the habit, use a content calendar, batch your videos, use an accountability partner, just start. Done is better than perfect, and treat it like a job. Now the advice is not wrong, and it works for a lot of people, um, but that doesn't mean that it works for everybody. And so I want to like map each piece of advice to like the action pipeline to kind of show you that it doesn't like work for me at least. So post consistently, show up every day, build a habit that solves a start condition and an ignition friction, and it provides persistence via momentum because you're staying in motion. It's easier to stay in motion than it is to start or restart, and it might solve the feedback delay pain, um, because you're increasing your number of reps, so your results will appear sooner statistically. But it doesn't solve exposure intolerance, shame threat, or sensory self representation issues, or the perfection spirals where I'm thinking if I'm wrong, I'll hurt people. I need to be correct, and so I won't move forward until I'm correct, and I'm never correct, completely correct. So then I just don't move forward. So it doesn't solve that. The next one, use a content calendar, and that solves task representation because it turns do YouTube into named commitments. It solves decision paralysis, and it reduces what should I do today, the cost of that, and it helps with sequencing because it provides an order so you don't re-choose the plan constantly. But it doesn't solve the transition from planned to recorded, because the calendar is upstream of the fear gate. The fear is down here when it's time to start. The calendar is all planning, and I'm good at planning, but it's not the execution part. Um, and the one question away from spiraling, with the whole depth and breadth, that research trap, it can amplify that. And that has been my experience. Batch your videos solves context switching costs because you have to do fewer setup and tear down cycles. Helps to manage energy for people who can ride that productive state, once it appears. And then it helps with editing and posting efficiency because it's more like an assembly line. But it doesn't solve the main block of initiation and recording. Batching just creates a bigger thing to do. And if it's like, if it becomes like overwhelming, if it seems overwhelming, then you're just not going to do it because it increases the pressure. So now I gotta, instead of just 20 minutes of recording a video, now I gotta do 4 hours worth of videos, and that's a lot. But anyway, next is use an accountability partner. And that solves, again, the start condition and ignition through external cues and social commitment. That body double effect, and I love body doubles because it helps. It super helps that ADHD side for sure. Um, and it stabilizes attention, and you're more likely to finish, get fewer exits from the task. And it reduces loneliness and um, ambiguity during the execution. But it doesn't solve, um, if the social element is itself is the threat. So if you're fear of being judged or fear of being seen or fear of being misunderstood, well, you don't want to be on camera. Um, and if the issue is internal safety, not external structure, then having a partner is just going to add more pressure. And then we have the just start. And that, I don't know that that truly solves anything, at least not for me. But micro avoidance and over planning when the real issue is a small activation hump. Perfectionism that's primarily cognitive rather than nervous system threat. And it gets you into the doing mode. I think it really helps with like motivation. Like it's like just start. Like that sounds so simple. And it's like, yeah, I mean anybody can just start, right? But no, not anybody can just start, because that doesn't help when the bottleneck is ignition, your ignition failing because your system is flagging this as danger. Now, um, or if the starting triggers the spiral. So, yeah, maybe I start, but then, I kind of freeze or redo stuff or go down these rabbit holes because I've spiraled. And just starting doesn't help with that. Done is better than perfect. That solves completion bottlenecking. Shipping. So, like, after you finish, it's like, well, you don't have to completely edit it all that great, just enough to get it done. Done is better than perfect. Um, but it doesn't like prevent, like, okay, so it'll help with re-recording loops. So if you can sit with that, done is better than perfect, then you'll be less likely to re-record and tweak and polish as a way to avoid actually posting. Um, and it helps you tolerate good enough and learn via iteration. But it doesn't solve it when perfect is actually like safe, accurate, or not harmful. When imperfections feel like identity threat or exposure. And that is how it feels for sure. Treat it like a job. Solves structure, routine, boundaries, schedule, time blocks, reduces reliance on motivation, and increases predictable reps, and also gives a role based frame. I do the work even when I don't feel like it, but it doesn't solve if the block is not motivation, but threat response, if rigid schedules trigger demand, avoidance, burnout, or sensory overload. So the story with me is that, like, I struggle to hold down a full time job. Usually by month 3, I am melting down, and my longest time on any job has been 1 year. So treating YouTube like a job might not work for me. Um, so the summary. Mainstream advice primarily targets ambiguity. What do I do? Inconsistent effort. I don't do it often enough to get traction. Inefficient workflows. I waste time switching tasks. Perfectionistic non shipping. I never publish. And those are all my issues for sure. But those are only some of my issues because it's weaker on recording as an exposure safety problem, nervous system, and identity threat, the research depth pattern, or restarting after interruptions. Now, I feel like most YouTube advice in general, is built for a specific kind of person. So that person has stable energy, they're neurotypical, comfortable enough on camera, maybe has a team, has some savings or financial cushion, and has a schedule that they either have control over or is flexible or forgiving. That person gets told post consistently and it works because consistency was always, their main issue. But that's not me. And if you are watching this at all, it might not be either. Now, I need signal over noise. And so, noise is applying those tactics designed for different systems to my own. And then when they don't work, blaming myself for it. All right. So, question 3: what does actually work? And what am I testing right now to see if it works? And how does that connect back? No, I won't do that. Okay. So, not, yeah, at this point, I don't know all about what works or not. But I do believe that what works for one person, for me, may not work for the other person because we all have different expressions of neurodivergence. But in general, structure or architecture is what will probably work and what I am testing. So I don't have a motivation problem, maybe a workflow problem, definitely an initiation problem, and a safety problem, which means I need a three-part solution. I need to, you know, intervene on all of those issues in order to be successful. Um, but I did find something that helped me over the last 6 to 8 months, and that's what led me here. The threat of being seen now. Um, that's why I'm on a live right now. And I was anyway. A few months ago, like I was able to keep at workout schedule for several months. Um, Something I hadn't done consistently before. And I normally I can only manage about 1 month of being consistent before I fall off. What did I do differently with that is I scheduled a live on camera body double session in a now defunct school community. I don't have that community anymore. It was too much. Um, but it was Monday through Friday at 5:30 a.m. Now I had someone who joined me most of the time, but it wasn't her joining me that helped. It was the threat that she could join me at any time during that live that made me do it. That and being on camera. So as if I wasn't on camera, I couldn't guarantee that I would actually work out. And I actually tested that. And it's very true. I had to be on camera. So my full like process with that, it started with an alarm that signaled me to, go into the bathroom and get ready. So brush my teeth, wash my face, get dressed, get a rag for my face when I sweat, um, set up my camera in the living room, spot clean a little bit, um, put on the YouTube video that I was going to exercise to or the Steezy app, turn on the school calendar link, and then turn the camera on, type a message in the chat, and just start working out. And whether anybody showed up, that was just my process every day. And all of those things helped me by putting me in motion because again that was something we said earlier about how you know it's a whole lot easier to stay in motion than it is to start or to restart. And so doing all those things helped make the next step easier, but it was the on camera action that made working out a certainty, and only that. So for YouTube, this first experiment is seeing if lives help me do the videos regularly. um, And I know that sounds counterproductive because, of my fear of exposure and all of that. Um, but the only way I'm going to know is if I try it. And so here I am trying it. And I feel like I've gotten this far. And so it's a success, even, just once. But, I got to do it repeatedly to be able to determine if it's actual success. And the beauty of my topics is that, you know, I struggle slash procrastinate with whatever, is that I don't have to teach outright because that was, um, what do you call it? It was something that would trigger my imposter syndrome if I felt I had to teach something that I barely knew myself or whatever. So with this series, all I have to do is talk about what I'm struggling with. Now, it does put me in a bit of a vulnerable position, but it's stuff that I could talk about all day, so it's fine. Um, I did do a script, and I am reading from that script as best as I can, um, because my mind will go blank when I start to record, and I just won't be able to think. So I have to have a script. And when I was planning this, yes, I wanted to do all these different things, but I've been using Claude AI lately, and it was like, no, how about we just go simple and just get this first one under your belt, and then we can discuss, adding all these other things to it. So I had to rein myself in a little bit. Anyway, yeah. So me still being here means this experiment worked. Um, At initially, at least, because like I said, it's going to take more than one to know if it actually works. Um, but now I'm going to, you know, I'm gonna have to watch this. I gotta, analyze, this whole process, this whole experience. see, what I was feeling, how everything went, what, if anything, tripped me up, if there's anything I need to change for the next time, and decide when that next time will even be. I don't know. I don't know if this is going to become a weekly thing or whenever I can thing, because that is my issue right now, is like not very consistent with it. So, but I do have a series planned out, but of course, I'm great at planning and not at executing. Um, but that's kind of the whole point of this whole experiment anyway. So finding out what actually gets me to show up consistently. So if you stayed this far, and this was helpful in the least, hit subscribe and turn on the notifications, um, because would think it would get better, the more I do it, right? But anyway, there's only one way you'll know when the next live is scheduled. So, um, and obviously, I can't promise a perfect, consistent schedule. Um, I can promise nothing at this point. Um, but if you're okay with that, I'll see you in the next one, whenever that is.